An Orthodox rabbi loses his life while walking on the Mount of Olives and, to his surprise, comes face to face with someone he never imagined he would see: Jesus. What this encounter reveals about the rapture has the potential to radically transform his beliefs. Now allow me to share with you a truly extraordinary testimony. My name is Ezra Lev Goldstein. I am 62 years old, and I am the rabbi of the Beth Shalom Synagogue in Jerusalem. Throughout my life, I have dedicated my time and effort to the deep study of the Torah and the Talmud, guiding my community in the rich traditions and Jewish laws that I deeply value. I was born into an Orthodox family where, from a very young age, I was taught to follow the legacy of my grandfather and my father, both revered religious leaders. My academic training took place in the most prestigious yeshivas in Israel, where I immersed myself in the study of the Hebrew scriptures and the profound commentaries of the great sages, becoming an expert in the field. 3 months ago, my life took an unexpected turn. It not only transformed my existence, but also altered my perception of everything I had considered true up to that moment. It all began on a Saturday, after the service at the synagogue. I felt exhausted after a long day leading the Shabbat. I decided to venture alone up the Mount of Olives, a place I used to visit to reflect and meditate on the scriptures. The heat was overwhelming, and as I climbed the hill, a feeling of heaviness began to take hold of my chest. At first, I thought it was just simple fatigue. After all, I'm not so young anymore. However, as I continued walking, the pain began to intensify alarmingly. I remember that, in a moment of desperation, I stopped and leaned against a centuries-old olive tree, seeking relief in its sturdy presence. The view of Jerusalem from that spot was simply breathtaking. The sun was beginning to set behind the majestic dome of the rock, painting the sky with golden and orange hues. It was that beautiful landscape that my eyes last beheld before the world faded away around me. Suddenly I collapsed to the ground and pain took hold of me, unbearable, as if a heavy weight were crushing my chest. I couldn't breathe and help seemed out of reach. In an instant I realized I was having a heart attack. I tried to reach my phone, but my arms felt as heavy as if they were made of lead. In my last conscious thought, I recited the Shema, clinging to that prayer as a final refuge. And then, darkness came. What happened next completely transformed my understanding of existence, of God, and of everything I thought I knew. In an instant, I experienced a strange sensation of lightness. The pain, which had been my constant companion, completely faded away. I opened my eyes and, to my surprise, found myself observing my own body lying on the ground. I felt no fear at all. Instead, a serene curiosity enveloped me. There was my body, motionless under the olive tree, while I floated above it, fully aware of the strange situation. In the distance, I caught sight of a group of tourists passing by, completely oblivious to what I was experiencing. I tried to scream for help, but no sound came from my throat. It was at that moment when everything made sense. I had died. Curiously, this idea did not terrify me as it should have. Instead, I experienced an inexplicable peace, a deep serenity that enveloped me. It was as if, despite the situation, everything was in its place. Looking at my body, I realized that a light was beginning to emerge around me, illuminating the surroundings with a warm and welcoming glow. It was not like the sunlight or that of a conventional lamp. It was a vibrant and pulsating light that seemed to spring from everywhere and at the same time, from nowhere. As that light intensified, I felt myself rising, distancing from my body, from Jerusalem. I did not experience fear, only the firm conviction that I was heading towards the place that was meant for me. I was gliding towards a light that transformed into a radiant tunnel. As I moved forward, I began to perceive sounds. They were not melodies in the traditional sense, but harmonies I had never before had the privilege of hearing. It was as if thousands of voices sang in unison in a language I could not understand, but that somehow resonated deep within my being. Suddenly, the sensation of movement stopped, and I found myself in a place that defied all description with words from the earthly realm. It was not a physical place as we know it, but it was more real than any reality I had ever experienced. Colors I had never seen before danced before my eyes, and a dazzling brightness filled the environment without hurting my sight. It was a feeling of fullness and completeness that enveloped every corner of my being. It was as if I had experienced my entire life through a fogged-up glass, and suddenly, everything was illuminated with astonishing clarity. It was in that moment that I saw him. Before me stood a man, but to simply call him a man would be too limited a description. Her presence was simply overwhelming, a radiant light that illuminated everything around her. She wore simple clothes, but so white that they seemed purer than any white I had ever seen on earth. His face emitted such an intense brightness that, at first, I thought I wouldn't be able to look at it directly. However, despite that brilliance, I was able to appreciate each of its details clearly. His eyes, those eyes that reflected a love so deep, so pure, and so unconditional, that I felt all my defenses crumble before their gaze. In that instant, I immediately understood who he was. Not only did I know it, but I recognized him deep within my being. It was Jeshua Jesus, the Messiah that I had rejected throughout my life. The same Messiah who, as a rabbi, had instructed my followers to despise. Now there he was, tangible, alive, and glorious. In her eyes there was no judgment, only a love that surpassed all human understanding. "The lambe is Draz," she said, and her voice resonated within me like thousands of waters filling every fiber of my being. It was not just a sound, it was a presence, a palpable reality. "You searched for me on every page of the Torah, but you never gave me the chance to find you." I fell to my knees, if I could still consider them knees in that state, completely overwhelmed by the truth that was being revealed to me. For 62 years, I had dedicated my life to studying the scriptures, searching for the Messiah in the words of the prophets, longing for his arrival, never realizing that he had already been among us. I managed to say I didn't know it. I thought I knew, but she responded tenderly. "It is. You searched sincerely, but you allowed human traditions to blind you. Now is the time to see, now is the time to understand, because a moment is approaching, closer than you imagine, in which everything you know will suddenly change." Jesus extended his hand, inviting me to rise. Upon touching it, I felt a deep knowledge beginning to flow within me, as if every page of the Torah, the prophets and the writings were illuminated with a new and revealing understanding. The prophecy that referred to him was unmistakable. It pointed directly to Jeshua. Isaiah 53, the Psalms, Daniel. Each of these texts spoke of him with a clarity that left me astonished. How could I have been so blind? "Ezra," Jeshua continued as we advanced through this kingdom of light, "I have come to warn my people about a final trap that is looming before the rapture." It was a time when those who believed they were prepared could stumble if they did not maintain constant vigilance. The rapture, I wondered, confused by a term that had never fit into my understanding of Jewish theology. "Yes, Ezra, the moment when I will gather my faithful, when the great trumpet sounds and my people are lifted to join me, is closer than many can imagine. However, before that happens, the adversary has woven a subtle trap." Jeshua led me to what appeared to be a vast illuminated amphitheater. We settled in, and before our eyes, as if it were a vibrant screen, images of the land began to unfold. People, churches, synagogues, and the everyday lives that were unfolding in their daily routines. "Listen, Ezra," said Joshua. "The final trap will not present itself as an open rebellion. It will not appear as something evil. On the contrary, it will seem normal, comfortable, and safe. And it is precisely because of this deceptive appearance that many will fall into it. You will see those who attend their synagogues and churches, who perform rituals and recite memorized words, but whose hearts are distant. Through religious leaders like me, traditions are passed down instead of cultivating a true relationship with the living God. Thus, many find themselves trapped in empty spiritual routines, convinced of their faithfulness, while their spiritual light slowly fades away. Do not speak of war if you only seek to scare people, Jeshua explained firmly. Instead, it speaks about the condition of the heart, because that is where the real danger lies. I see a time when believers allow themselves to be carried away by spiritual lethargy, dulling their faith and commitment. Caught up in the hustle and bustle of everyday life, many feel secure in their loyalty, while their lamps burn silently. As I spoke, I could imagine these people immersed in their daily routines, trapped in worries, entertainments, jobs, and even in religious activities. However, despite all this, they lack an authentic connection with God. Their lives seemed complete, but their souls felt empty. I see churches overflowing with activity, but lacking essence, Jesua continued. I observe people attending, singing, and preaching, but they are drifting further away from my voice. With a simple wave of their hand, the scene transformed, and suddenly, I could delve into the hearts of the people. It was as if I could grasp their thoughts, their emotions, and the true motivations that drove them. I observed how many of them believed themselves to be deeply spiritual, when in reality they were trapped in self-deception. The last trap before the abduction will not present itself as an enemy knocking at your door. It will arise from the depths of your comfort zone from each one of us. It will manifest in whispers that tell you, you have time, you are fine, everyone lives like this. And while hearts grow cold and love fades away, the inexorable clock of eternity moves forward to that unknown hour. I felt a deep weight in my heart as I absorbed the truth of his words. How many of my own teachings as a rabbi had been more rooted in human traditions than in a genuine connection with God? How many times had I carried out rituals without my heart truly being present? The message is not about fear, Esdras, Jesua said as he placed his hand on my shoulder. It is about love. The love of a Savior who warns his bride not to fall behind. I invite you not to panic, but to prepare yourself, to open your eyes and shake off the lethargy that surrounds you. Remember that the rapture is not simply a way to escape the world, but an opportunity to join the one who gave his life for you. Then he rose, and with a simple gesture, the amphitheater faded before our eyes. Suddenly, we found ourselves in a garden of indescribable beauty. Every flower, every tree, seemed to silently sing a melody in honor of the Creator as we walked through that paradise. Before the trumpet sounds, I continue speaking. The question is, are you still listening? His words resonated deeply within my being. Throughout my life as a rabbi, I have dedicated myself to listening to the voice of God in the Scriptures. However, I now realized that this quest had often been overshadowed by human interpretations, traditions that, although valuable, had transformed into obstacles to achieving true understanding. Listen carefully, Jesua continued as we walked through the garden. When my disciples asked me about the signs of my return and the end of times, my first warning did not focus on wars, earthquakes, or the figure of the Antichrist. It was about deception. I warned them, be careful not to be deceived. At that moment, we stopped in front of a tree full of fruits that seemed to radiate their own light. That was my first warning, as I knew that deception would be the last weapon the adversary would use before the rapture. The deception, and this deception does not always present itself in a thunderous manner. It does not always manifest as a dark shadow. Sometimes it disguises itself as light, speaking eloquently, quoting sacred texts, and even using revered symbols. Jesua chose one of the luminous fruits and offered it to me with a smile. Upon receiving it, I felt it fading in my hands, and a deep understanding began to flow through me, illuminating my mind. That's why, instead of warning about demons, I said, be careful that no one deceives you, because the most dangerous lies are those that seem almost true. Then, he showed me images of people who claimed to follow him, but in reality, they were following a version of Jesua that fit their lifestyle. There was a Jeshua who did not confront, who did not demand repentance, who did not speak of sin or holiness. In recent days, I have observed that many believers do not distance themselves from me in an obvious way. Instead, they choose to follow a version of me that fits their lifestyle. The modern gospel has weakened, becoming a mere comfort for the flesh, instead of being a call to crucify it. Grace is revealed as a permission, not as a limitation. It is a call for people to live their truth, to embrace their essence instead of repressing it. I observed how the crowds allowed themselves to be seduced by half-truths, by gentle spiritual lullabies that did not demand authentic transformation. It was in a moment of profound revelation that I understood that, as a rabbi, I too had fallen into the trap of teaching traditions that, although they seemed solid, failed to provoke a true change in the hearts of people. For a long time, I anticipated this, and now it is becoming evident. I warned about the false prophets who, with their appearance of miracles and grand platforms, would speak in my name. However, their true hearts would be revealed through their fruits. Many will come to me saying, "Lord, Lord," but I will answer them, "I never knew you." He paused, fixing his gaze on my eyes with intensity. This is not a rejection, Idra. It is a revelation. I am showing you that many people say they know me, but very few actually walk by my side. I nodded, understanding his words, and I felt that the tears, if they exist in this spiritual state, began to slide down my cheeks. How many times in my religious fervor did I confuse knowledge about God with a true relationship with Him? How many times did I judge Christians without truly understanding the essence of Yeshua's message? This ultimate trap is activated the moment discernment dies. It is a subtle process that occurs when believers stop distinguishing the voice of the Spirit. Instead of seeking the truth, they begin to choose their teachers based on charisma and appearance, rather than on deep conviction. When congregations prioritize attendance over true repentance, the message transforms. It is no longer heard, "Take up your cross," but rather, "Follow your dreams." At that moment, Yeshua took me to a new scenario. We were at the top of an imposing mountain, from where we could see all the land stretching out before us. My first warning about the deception was not a mere accident. It was, in truth, prophetic. I was able to glimpse the world in which you live today, a world filled with an illusory peace, a deceptive unity, distorted doctrines, and a love that is not genuine. The most dangerous preacher of these last days is not the one who loudly proclaims lies, but the one who softly whispers to a generation that resists change. He pointed to the land, and my eyes settled on a group of people gathered in imposing temples, absorbed in messages that provided them with a sense of well-being, but that never represented a true challenge for their spirits. It was then that I noticed, "Be careful, stay alert, be sober." I urged them to examine every word they heard in light of my teaching. Do not be swayed by personalities. Seek the truth. For deception is not overcome by fleeting emotions, but by the wisdom of the Scriptures. Then, Yeshua approached, and upon touching me with his forehead, I felt that all the Scriptures, the Torah, the prophets, the writings, and what Christians know as the New Testament, were illuminated in my mind with perfect clarity and harmony. Everything led to him. Everything found its essence in Yeshua. The Word of God is your shield, your filter, your compass in the fog of this world. If I warn you with such passion about deception, it is because I love you deeply and cannot allow you to get lost in the darkness, believing that you walk in the light. Then he turned to me, his eyes brimming with love and intense urgency. The final trap will not present itself as something evil. On the contrary, it will seem simple. For this reason, only those who are firmly rooted in the truth will endure until the trumpet sounds. Let us remain silent for a moment, allowing these truths to penetrate deeply into my spirit. As a rabbi, I had dedicated my life to the study of the Scriptures, but now I understood that, on many occasions, I had read them with blindfolded eyes, unable to recognize the Messiah who was revealing himself to me on every page. There is another truth that I must reveal to you, Jesus said, as the landscape around us began to transform once again. Suddenly, we found ourselves in a vast plain where 10 young people were waiting, holding lamps in their hands. The parable that Jesus shared about the 10 virgins immediately resonates in our minds. When the church falls into lethargy, an unsettling silence takes over the atmosphere, like a foreboding before the storm. The air feels calm, almost peaceful, and a false sense of security seems to envelop everything. If you pay attention, you will be able to perceive that something is about to change. As we watched, the 10 young women began to nod off and little by little fell into a deep sleep. In that moment, spiritually, we encounter Itra. Although the world seems bustling and the church appears active, beneath that noisy surface, A deep spiritual lethargy takes hold of hearts. Jesus looked at the young women who lay asleep and began to tell them the parable of the 10 virgins. They all eagerly awaited the arrival of the bridegroom, each carrying her lamp, and at one moment sleep overcame them. However, when the midnight cry came, only 5 of them were prepared, for they had enough oil to light their lamps. Then I observed that 5 of the virgins carried extra jars of oil, while the other 5 only had what was left in their lamps. And this, dear friend, is the representation of the church before the rapture. Everyone was waiting, all filled with anticipation, but only halfway prepared. Jesus approached the young women who were sleeping, looking at them with deep love and palpable concern. The true difference did not lie in their presence, but in the intimate connection they shared. The oil symbolized their intimate life with God, that personal fire that could not be lent or simulated. He turned to me and his eyes penetrated deep into my being. "You can't buy oil at midnight, Esdras," he told me. "You can't borrow someone else's faith." The foolish virgins didn't fail because they lost faith. Their true mistake was procrastination. They believed they still had plenty of time. These words resonated deeply within me. How many times throughout my life as a rabbi have I postponed a more intimate connection with God, convinced that there would always be a future moment to deepen my faith? And that same whisper deceives millions today. Jesua continues. Perhaps you will take it seriously later on, but that later never comes. Life moves on and the flame goes out in a deep silence. The scene changed again, and now we observe people of all ages, races, and backgrounds, each seemingly immersed in their own lives, but spiritually asleep. This is the powerful lullaby of the last days of Ezra. The adversary does not always resort to fear to destroy you. Often it prefers comfort to lull you into a stupor. It does not need to incite you to hate me. Its strategy is much more subtle. It only needs to keep you too busy to think of me, too distracted to notice my presence, too tired to seek me out, and too entertained to listen to my voice. I observed how people were completely immersed in their electronic devices, in their daily rushes, and in their entertainment, leaving little to no time for a deep search for God. The voice of the adversary does not resonate like a rebellion, Ezra. Rather, it resembles a monotonous routine. You pray in the synagogue or in the church, you sing the songs and utter the prayers, but your heart feels distant, as if it were empty of oil and your spirit numb. It was then that Jesua revealed to me how many people persist in their religious practices but lack that inner fire, that authentic communion with God. I warned them to remain vigilant and to pray, because at the moment they cease to be alert, lethargy will begin. The night will grow darker, the world will cool down, and the footsteps of the groom will draw near. At that moment, we hear a distant sound, similar to that of a trumpet or a sofa. Before we continue, just one request: subscribe to the channel. That helps us a lot to continue. The call is about to come, but you will be ready when that happens. The question hung in the air between us, and I could feel its weight. All my life of religious devotion now felt superficial in the face of this transcendental truth. If you have ever felt that your spiritual fire no longer burns with the same intensity as before, this is the perfect moment to awaken, Jesua told me as he placed his hand on my shoulder. Do not be deceived by the silence, do not confuse peace with waiting. The midnight cry approaches and its echo resonates in my heart, calling to my beloved. Wake up, my dear. Prepare your lamp, for I am about to arrive. She looked at me intensely, as if she could see beyond the darkness. Before we continue, just one request. Please subscribe to our channel. It really helps us keep going. When the scream finally breaks the silence of the night, there will be no time for preparations. There will only be a moment to respond. Only those who have kept their hearts awake will rise to me in the air, ready for the encounter. Jesus took me to another scene, and in an instant, I recognized the plains surrounding Sodom and Gomorrah. I observed Lot and his family being guided by angels out of the city, while Lot's wife, in an act of disobedience, looked back and was transformed into a pillar of salt. I mentioned it. Remember Lot's wife. I was not only evoking a tragic moment from Genesis, Jesua explained. I was offering a prophetic warning to all believers who live before my return. I approached the pillar of salt that was once Lot's wife. She was not an unbeliever, Ezra. She had been spared from destruction, chosen to escape judgment, walking the same path as the righteous. However, her heart kept looking back. She saw how the flames devoured the city, but Lot's wife's gaze remained fixed on it, unable to turn away. The fleeting allure of Sodom, the comfort of the known, the love for a world that, little by little, drowns our thirst for eternity. But it doesn't happen overnight, Ezra. It happens through small and silent compromises. Then, Jesua revealed to me scenes of modern life, where people tried to balance their faith with comfort and convenience, always yielding a little more to the world. It begins at the moment when your love for me confronts your love for comfort. When your faith becomes an element that you try to force into the gaps between your hobbies, your work, and your pleasures. That is when you aim for the sky which is above us. I had already noticed it. Wherever your dedication is, there your heart will be also. In recent days, the treasure of many hearts is hidden behind screens, status, wealth, and fleeting pleasures. People, trapped in an endless cycle of connection to their devices, constantly seek validation on social media. They dedicate themselves to accumulating possessions, always in search of greater comfort and entertainment, without realizing what truly matters. We are immersed in a sea of noise that turns silence into something uncomfortable. We are constantly bombarded with images, goals, and desires that promise happiness, but in the end, they only leave us with a deep emptiness. In the midst of this chaos, Jekuami looked at me intently. The most insidious trap does not lie in people rejecting me, but in them replacing me with distractions. With a simple gesture of his hand, he revealed to me how entertainment has transformed into a true cult, how comfort has risen to become a doctrine, and how convenience has become an idol worshipped by many. Look around you. People chase after the ephemeral, ignoring what truly endures. However, they feel justified, as everyone around them seems to live the same way. It was then that Jeshua pointed again to Lot's wife. The world urges you to create a life that looks successful. However, I invite you to build an existence that can withstand the flames of fire. Lot's wife teaches us that true salvation is not simply about escaping a city, but about letting go of a heart that still feels love. He approached the statue of Sal, gently caressing it. You can free yourselves from its physical control, but its essence will always remain in your souls, he warned seriously. With those words resonating in our hearts, we moved away from the place of destruction, while Jeshua continued on his path. The true danger does not lie in possessing things, but in allowing those things to possess us. Then, it reminded me of some words from the Gospels, specifically from Luke 21:34. Be careful, he said. Do not let your hearts be weighed down by dissipation, drunkenness, and the worries of life, for that day will come upon you suddenly, like a trap. Pay attention to my words, where the concerns of life are reflected. Often it is only the good things that can turn into traps, consuming our hearts. It revealed to me how family, career, comfort, and even ministry can become chains that distance us from intimacy with Christ. The last trap before the abduction will be the illusion of security. People will proclaim peace and safety, while their souls fall into a deep lethargy. The enemy wants you to feel so comfortable that you never realize you are asleep. He wants you to be rich in material goods, but poor in passion. He wants your life to be entertaining but empty. However, Jesus Christ, with his face and his eyes that penetrate deeply into my soul, invites me to reflect. I urge you to remember Lot's wife. Keep your gaze firmly set on the future, in the kingdom, with your heart detached from the things of the world. For the moment you look back, you will lose sight of the one who calls you to return home. He took a significant pause, and his next words resonated within me like a deep echo. Rapture is not for those who merely admire the sky. It is for those who long for it fervently. So ask yourself, if I were to call you tonight, would your heart be anchored in me or trapped in this world? Because when the trumpet sounds, those who keep looking back will never be able to move forward. The landscape has changed once again, and now we find ourselves in a place that resembles a high hill. From that place, We had a privileged view of people in their churches and synagogues, as well as in their homes and workplaces. It was evident that many were in conflict with each other. In Matthew 24, Yeshua not only warned us about deception and distraction, he also spoke of something even more insidious, more subtle, and undoubtedly much more destructive to the church: offense. Then he quoted his own words. "Then many will be offended, will betray one another, and will hate one another. And because wickedness has multiplied, the love of many will grow cold." As I spoke, I observed how people were drifting away, churches were fragmenting, and relationships were wearing thin due to unresolved offenses. Resentment is a silent killer that lurks in our final days, Ezra. It does not present itself overtly. It infiltrates us through wounded feelings, misunderstood words, hurt pride, and scars that have yet to heal. Whisper, "You don't deserve this. You have been hurt. You are so much more than this." And little by little, love begins to fade away. I have witnessed how offenses have fractured what God joined, how they have destroyed families, disintegrated congregations, and isolated hearts that once burned with fervor. Offense has the ability to cloud our vision of the bigger picture, leading us to venerate our own pain. And that is exactly what the adversary seeks, for he understands that an offended Christian becomes an ineffective Christian. At that moment, Jesua looked directly at me, his eyes overflowing with compassion. "You cannot carry your cross and your resentment at the same time, Ezra." Then, he revealed to me his own suffering on the cross, the betrayal of his friends, the rejection of his own people, and the crucifixion at the hands of those he came to save. And yet I said to him, "Father, forgive them." The cross was not just a place of suffering, Ezra. It was a space of surrender. There I demonstrated that forgiveness is not simply a feeling, but a true liberation. It is not about excusing bad actions, but about freeing the heart from their influence. Then, Jesua revealed to me how, in the last days, offense would spread faster than faith. He showed me how social media would fan the flames of division, how pride would foster comparison, and how the world would applaud indignation. However, the love I have spoken of is truly exceptional. It is not a fragile love, it is sacred. It is the only light that will remain shining even when darkness envelops the earth. He placed his hand over my heart. If you feel that your love has faded, you still have the chance to rekindle it. Ask me to melt the walls you have built around your heart. Although the offense may seem justified, it will only leave you with a deep emptiness. On the other hand, forgiveness, although it may seem painful at first, will bring you true liberation. It was then that Jesua revealed to me that the enemy's final strategy, before the rapture, was to divide the body of Christ through bitterness. He knew that a divided girlfriend could not stay united, so he chooses love, even if it causes Ezra pain. He opts for peace even if pride gets in the way. He chooses forgiveness not because they deserve it, but because I forgave you first. He looked deeply into my eyes and said, "Do not let resentment be the author of your story. To culminate with grace, it is important to remember that when the trumpet sounds, only those with pure hearts and a burning love will be able to recognize the voice that calls them back home." Then Jesua took me to another scene where, in synagogues and churches, everyone was convinced of their own righteousness. Each one firmly believed they were on the right path, fully trusting in their own understanding. Nowadays, a terrifying deception has infiltrated the church. It is not a rebellion, but a false confidence that manifests in a silent whisper that says, "I'm ready. I'm fine. I'll go to church. I'll give, I believe." However, the words of the apocalypse come to my mind, where there is a warning about a church that believed it was rich and needed nothing, but which in reality was poor, blind, and naked. What did they expect me to understand? That church was an odyssey, a reflection of the believer of the last times who confused comfort with closeness to the divine. As I spoke, I observed the people immersed in their religious routines, clinging to their traditions and rituals, but lacking true intimacy with God. This illusion of feeling prepared is one of the last traps we face before the rapture of Ezra's. It is not about the cold heart of the world, but the lukewarm heart of the believer. This is the one who believes they walk by my side, but in reality, they move forward with fear, at a certain distance. I observed how these people pronounced the name of God, sang their songs, and quoted his words. However, they no longer heard his voice or felt his heart. This experience leads you to reflect on the idea that a simple spiritual checklist is not the same as true spiritual intimacy. Leave the prayer as a duty, not as a dialogue. Replace the cry of Lord, have mercy with Lord, you know I am good. It was then that Jesua revealed to me the most terrifying aspect of this condition. And the most terrifying thing is that the people who consider themselves holy are rarely aware of their true condition. That's why I told them, I am rich, but you do not realize that you are miserable, poor, blind, and naked. Then, he showed me how many believers prefer words of motivation over the truth that truly penetrates the heart. They seek blessings, but without yearning for genuine transformation. The believer from Laodicea longs to have me as Savior, but not as their Lord. Desires the crown, but rejects the cross. Seeks my blessing, but ignores the burden I feel for souls. In this context, Jesua revealed himself to me knocking at the door. However, I am at the door and knock not to the world but to the church. I keep calling, I keep inviting, I keep pleading. Acquire from me the gold refined in the fire. He approached me with a burning gaze, full of intensity. In that moment I offered him purity instead of pride, intimacy instead of appearance. I do not seek your perfect story. I long for your sincere and devoted heart. Then, he remembered another of his teachings. Many will say, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name? And I will respond, I never knew you. These are some of the most painful words found in the scriptures, Ezra, not because I rejected them, but because they never allowed me to truly enter into their essence. I took a significant pause, allowing the truth to penetrate deeply into my mind. The true trap did not lie in sin, but in self-sufficiency. It was then that Jesua revealed to me that the last generation faces a crucial choice, to opt between appearance and authenticity, between religion and relationship, between being observed by others and being truly known by Jesus. The only way to be truly prepared for the rapture is to live in daily humility before me. This involves allowing the Holy Spirit to constantly examine your heart, to break your pride, and to renew your lamp with the necessary oil. Then, he posed an incisive question to me. If you truly believe you are prepared, test your heart, Ezra. Do you long for my arrival, or do you simply fear being left behind? Do you serve me out of love or out of habit? He remained silent, waiting as I deeply reflected on these unsettling questions. As a rabbi, I had dedicated decades of my life to the service of God, but I found myself at a crossroads. What had truly been my real motivation? Was it a genuine love for God, or merely a blind obedience to tradition? The true disposition of the heart is not revealed solely by the actions performed, as Ezra well taught. It reveals how much of you belongs to me, because when the trumpet sounds, I will not look towards the proud, the busy, or the famous. Instead, I will direct my gaze towards the faithful, towards those who have a broken heart, and those who are pure in heart. The landscape began to transform for the last time, and suddenly we found ourselves in a beautiful garden, a place that seemed taken from Eden, the one I had studied in the scriptures throughout my life. The last test before the rapture will not be a demonic attack or a global disaster, Edra. It will be a spiritual distraction. Jesua walked by my side, surrounded by magnificent trees and flowers of astonishing beauty. The enemy does not need to destroy you. His strategy is much more subtle. He does not seek to turn you into an atheist, but is content with making you fall into apathy. Then he stopped and turned to me. At that moment, my being was filled with an unexpected serenity, not through panic, but through a deep purity. I said, "Watch therefore and pray always that you may be counted worthy to escape all these things that will come to pass, and to stand before the Son of Man." He felt the hands marked by the scars of the nails. Watch and pray. These are two simple commandments that keep your spirit alive and your heart steadfast. To watch means to keep your gaze on the heavens, while to pray connects your heart with the one who comes from there. Then Jesua placed his hands on my shoulders and looked intensely into my eyes. The rapture is not simply a matter of escaping, it is about unity. It is not about fleeing from wrath, but about running into my arms. The husband does not seek a fearful church, but a faithful church, a bride whose heart beats for him more intensely than for the world. Then he posed a series of incisive questions to me. So ask yourself, is your lamp lit? Is your heart sensitive? Is your spirit awake? Because the time has come to leave appearances behind. As I spoke, I observed how the signs of the times manifested in the world we had beneath our feet. Wars, natural disasters, a moral collapse, and the unsettling preparation for the arrival of the Antichrist. The tremor of the world is not a mere coincidence. It is a call to reflection. It is divine mercy. It is heaven crying out, "Wake up, the bridegroom is coming." This idea deeply moved me. It is not about being perfect, but about being pure. I understood that purity does not imply the absence of flaws, but rather manifests through unconditional love. Living each day with eternity in the heart means forgiving quickly, loving deeply, praying frequently, and not holding anything back for oneself. When I return, I will not be interested in titles, talents, or achievements. What I will truly seek are hearts that, despite the darkness, have remained passionate for me. I will look for those believers who refused to yield to deception, who fought to stay awake and who carried oil in their lamps, even when the night seemed endless. At that moment, they looked up to the sky and saw what appeared to be a heavenly trumpet, ready to sound. The trumpet will sound soon, Ezra. The bridegroom is closer than ever, and the final trap is set, but you don't have to fall into it. You can overcome it by holding on to me, loving the truth more than comfort, and choosing holiness over habit. In that moment, she embraced me, and I felt a love so pure, so complete, that tears of joy began to run down my spiritual face. So, beloved, stay awake, keep your lamps lit and your eyes fixed on the sky. The night may be long, but morning will come, and with it the voice of the bridegroom saying, "Come up here." That glorious moment will make every tear, every trial, and every temptation disappear, and they will stand before the one who loved them enough to warn them, because he cared for them. It was then that I felt a strange sensation, as if I were being pulled back. The last words of Jesua resonated in my spirit as the light around me began to fade. I was returning to my body. Was this possible? Was I really coming back? Jesua's voice echoed one last time. "Return and tell what you saw. Now you have a new mission." The next thing I felt was pain, an intense pain in my chest. I heard distant voices, the sound of medical equipment, and someone shouting in Hebrew. I was coming back. "He has a pulse," I heard. I opened my eyes with difficulty and saw the worried face of a paramedic. I was in an ambulance, with medical equipment connected to my body. I had suffered a heart attack on the Mount of Olives, and some tourists who found me called an ambulance. The doctor said afterward that I was clinically dead for almost 4 minutes before they could revive me, but I knew that those 4 earthly minutes meant much more in the spiritual realm. I had encountered Jesua, Jesus, the Messiah that my people had awaited for so long, and whom as a rabbi, I had rejected my whole life. In the weeks following my near-death experience, my life changed completely. I could no longer return to the synagogue as before. How could I continue to lead my congregation without sharing the truth that I now knew? How could I keep denying Jesua as the Messiah when I had known him face to face? My decision to share my experience with my family and the congregation provoked surprise, disbelief, and in some cases, rejection. My wife Miriam initially thought that the heart attack had affected me mentally, and my children were confused and worried. The leaders of the synagogue suggested that I take some time to regain clarity, but deep down, I knew what I had experienced. The truth of Jesua burned in my heart with an undeniable and uncontrollable intensity. Thus, I began to study the writings of the New Testament, and I was amazed to discover how each prophecy I had analyzed over the decades clearly pointed to Jesua. 6 months after my experience, I made the painful but necessary decision to officially resign from my position as rabbi. Some members of the Jewish community considered me a traitor, others simply an confused elder. However, a small group felt curious, asked questions, and wished to understand what had led me to such a radical change. I started meeting with them at my house, sharing what I had learned and studying the scriptures from a new perspective, observing how the Torah and the prophets pointed to Yeshua on every page. Little by little, others joined, curious Jews and Christians who wanted to learn more about the Jewish roots of their faith. Today, 3 years after my near-death experience, I lead a small community of Messianic Jews in Jerusalem. Although I continue to use my rabbinical knowledge and love the traditions and richness of Judaism, I now see everything in the light of Jesua. My wife has also embraced this faith, although some of my children still resist. The message that Jesua shared with me about the final trap before the rapture has become the core of my testimony. I warn everyone about the danger of spiritual deception, distraction, and comfort that lead to spiritual lethargy. I share the importance of keeping our lamps filled with oil, our hearts awake and attentive to the voice of the bridegroom. Many ask me if I fear the consequences of my decision, the rejection of my community, the loss of status, the doors that have closed. I respond to you with the words that Jesua told me. The rapture is not for those who simply admire the sky, but for those who long for it. I long for that moment, the instant when the trumpet sounds and all those who truly know and love the Messiah are taken up to meet him in the air. I don't know when that day will come, but I am sure it is closer than many imagine. Until then, I will continue to share what I have seen, what I have heard, and what I have lived. I am Ezra Lev Goldstein, former rabbi of the Vez Shalom Synagogue, and now I consider myself simply a follower of Jesua, the Messiah of Israel and Savior of the world. My near-death experience did not mark the end of my story. On the contrary, it was just the beginning of a new chapter. By sharing my journey, I hope that others will also awaken from their spiritual slumber before it is too late, before the night falls and the bridegroom appears. Because, as Jesua revealed to me in that transcendental encounter, before the trumpet sounds, I am still here speaking. The question that arises is, are you still paying attention? Is this not a profound and unforgettable account? The Bible warns us in Matthew chapter 24, verse 42, "Therefore stay alert, for you do not know on what day your Lord will come." Thank you very much, Ezra Goldstein, for sharing such a brave and transformative experience with us. And to all of you who have accompanied us on this journey, may the blessings of heaven come into your lives in a deep and meaningful way. Remember that the greatest deception of these last days will be to think that there is still time. The trumpet is about to sound, so keep your lamp lit, your heart pure, and your hope alive. We will meet in the next video. Until then, stay alert.